Bible devotions as we continue our study about logic and the Christian faith. I want you to be introduced into the difference between arguments and assertion. The thing is, when we hear the word argument, we think it's always belligerent, it's always about going into a fight, it's always about being rowdy. But actually, argument is a philosophical term that is needed in reasoning. If we want to make use of logic properly, we use it through arguments. So I'm gonna show you the difference between the two. Okay, so what is the difference between argument and assertion? Usually when we get into a verbal fight, what people do is they don't actually use argument. We call them arguing, but they're not really arguing. What they're using is assertion. Assertion is a judgment or conclusion that is presented by itself without reasons to support it. Example is, Mr. Jones is a horrible teacher. So you see, with assertion, it is made to seem as though the idea is an accepted fact. It's being passed on as a fact even though there is no reason to support it. It's like, how could you do this to me? You're a bad person. Or you're judgmental and this and that. In those verbal fights, assertions are being used and we say that people are arguing even though they're not really using arguments. Those are assertions. Assertions often result from subjective reasoning. A conclusion obtained from reasons an individual believes to be true. So there is also a use of belief. There is also a use of reason, but in a wrong way. It's very subjective as opposed to being objective or factual. It is subjective and out of a wrong belief. An individual accepts the conclusion, he asserts it as a fact. Again, even though there is no reason to support them. The thing is, the flow of facts here, or the facts being presented, because the things are being passed on as facts, when you put them together, they don't make sense. They are not logical. This is how you use logic properly. You have to make sure that you're not just giving an assertion, but you're really making an argument. Examples of assertion: labeling, name calling, or innuendo. Labeling, it occurs in emotionally charged situations, not dominated by logical reasoning. See, it's considered a type of assertion. Innuendo is an assertion that is not directly stated, but implied or hinted at. You want to see examples of assertions? Let's look again at the passages I presented yesterday. From Luke 11, this is when the Jews believed that Jesus was actually casting out demons by Beelzebul, the prince of demons. So when the demon had gone out, the mute man spoke, and the people marveled. But some of them said, he cast out demons by Beelzebul, the prince of demons. And as I showed you yesterday, Jesus practically destroyed that with great logic. But the assertion was actually there. People used assertion against Jesus. Jesus saw that and he used logic and proper reasoning to destroy their assertion. He cast out demons by Beelzebul. It's being passed on as fact, but there is no proper reasoning. There is no logical reasoning for that. Another one, when the Jews picked up stones to stone Jesus, what did they say? We are going to stone you for blasphemy. But do they have logical reasoning for that? No. They're passing on as fact that Jesus is using blasphemy. What did Jesus do? Seeing their assertion, their being illogical, he destroyed that assertion with logical reasoning. What Jesus did is that he used logical arguments. What is an argument? An argument is a conversation that contains at least two statements. It includes one reason and one conclusion. Some arguments contain three parts. One is reason or evidence. Second is that a signpost word or transition. third is a conclusion. Okay, this definition of argument containing three parts is a bit different from what I'm used to. What I'm used to is using two reasons, or we call that premises. I will talk more about that tomorrow. But for you to see the difference between argument and assertion, let's use this definition first. Reason, signpost, and conclusion. Signpost is that therefore, hence, accordingly, as a result. So this signpost is important in showing logic. You're showing that the evidence that you're presenting, the reason to support your conclusion or the reason to support what you're saying, to show that this is an argument and not an assertion. The signpost actually indicates that there is a logical flow from your reason to your conclusion. Here's an example. Reason. Exercise stimulates the brain, releases endorphins, and heightens awareness. Signpost word, therefore. Conclusion. Athletes are better students than others. Again, so if you want to present an argument based on reason or logical reasoning, exercise stimulates the brain, releases endorphins, and heightens awareness. Therefore, the logical flow, therefore, athletes are better students than others. I will give you a biblical example of this. I will read from Acts chapter 17, verses 1 to 8. Now when they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a synagogue of the Jews. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, went in, as was his custom, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the Scriptures, explaining and proving that it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead, and saying, "This Jesus, whom I proclaim to you, is the Christ." And some of them were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, as did a great many of the devout Greeks and not a few of the leading women. But the Jews were jealous, and taking some wicked men of the rabble, they formed a mob, set the city in an uproar, and attacked the house of Jason, seeking to bring them out to the crowd. And when they could not find them, they dragged Jason and some of the brothers before the city authorities, shouting, "These men who have turned the world upside down have come here also. And Jason has received them, and they are all acting against the decree of Caesar, saying that there is another king, Jesus." And the people and the city authorities were disturbed when they heard these things. You see, from this passage, you can see a good example of both an assertion and an argument. Argument comes from Paul. Well, we did not really see here how he used the arguments, but it's clear here. He said he reasoned with them from the Scriptures. So he was arguing for Christ, for Jesus, using the Scriptures, but he's using logic. He's using reasoning. But the people, what did we say about assertion? It's usually from emotional conversations. It says here, the Jews were jealous and taking some of the wicked men, so they formed a mob. And what did they say? "These men who have turned the world upside down have come here also." And Jason has said, they are all acting against the decree of Caesar. Was that what was happening? No, that wasn't that wasn't what's happening there. They weren't making a rebellion against Caesar, but these people were passing it on as fact. They're making assertions because they were jealous. So, argument versus assertion. This is another proof that Christianity is not anti-logic. It is pro-logic. And a good Christian actually uses reasoning, proper logic, and makes arguments, proper arguments, not picking fights, not being belligerent, not being rowdy, but actually speaking from reasons, logic, and argument.